Good morning, dear participants of the marathon. For the benefit of the world, we will start with offering our apologies for a small delay due to technical reasons, and we continue our program. And today our guest is Nara Hari Prabhu. He is a teacher of psychology and philosophy. In 1995, he established an academy of Eastern philosophy and culture. He studies the unity of world religions, manages the School of Progressive Leaders idea in India. He also develops social charitable projects in cooperation with the European Union countries. And in 2020, he started a big tour across the EU and Middle East countries with seminars and trainings on personal development. Over to you, Nara Hari Prabhu. Good day to everyone. Yes, sadly, my tour has been interrupted by this global quarantine, and currently I'm in Israel. It's an early morning here, nearly 5 a.m. And today we continue reading Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is a great Vedic scripture. It is interesting that in Srimad-Bhagavatam, 10 topics are described. This is creation, and creation, the initial creation of this world, not even the world, of the prime elements. Then secondary creation as Lego, like in Lego, these elements are put together and take shapes. Then support, maintenance, when everything, this creation needs to be maintained so that it can work. And the next topic of Bhagavatam is a special mercy of the Lord, which expands to the people who believe in God, who think about Him, and He thinks about them, especially. The next topic is the impulse to activity, because even if you, a lion, let's say, a king of all animals, if you sit in the forest, open your mouth and think that all the animals will come to you and enter your mouth. No, that won't happen. You have to make an effort. And the impulse to activity, we need to do it so that we get what we need to get. And the next topic is Manvantaras, the ruling of Manus. Manu are certain creatures from other planets. From the word Manu, the word man emerges. They are the ancestors of the humanity. The next topic is incarnations of the Lord on the earth. Also, there are topics of destruction of the world and liberation. And the main topic is shelter, where all people and living beings can find shelter. And these 10 topics of the Holy Scripture, Srimad-Bhagavatam, are in every canto. There are 12 cantos, and each canto, these topics are present a little bit in each canto. It's difficult to fix one topic with one canto, with certain canto. And one great sage of the past, Jiva Goswami, you don't have to remember it, he explained that despite all these topics are present in all different cantos of Bhagavatam, in certain cantos, one of the other topics is disclosed in more depth. And today we study the 4th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, and we can discuss 4 main topics here. It's interesting that Jiva Goswami says that any holy scripture, regardless of the religion, should contain at least 5 elements, topics. If the Holy Scripture claims to be divine, 5 topics should be disclosed. And as far as our 4th canto is concerned, as I understand, this is the 4th day of the marathon, or of the second part of the marathon. There was a first part to it. And here we should discuss the secondary creation, a manifestation of a special mercy of the Lord to the devotees, the manus, the ancestors of the humankind, and the incarnations of the Lord. And in a couple of words, I'll speak briefly about all these topics, so that we can understand what this is all about. If you can remember, I started with 10 topics of the Bhagavatam. The first topic is creation. Of course, everything starts with creation. But in the 4th canto, today we will review the secondary creation, not the primary creation, because the primary creation has been reviewed in the 3rd canto. And what is the difference between the secondary and primary creation? Because this will lead to some special spiritual thoughts, realizations. The initial creation is the creation of the primary elements, from which the universe will be constructed. Secondary creation is when someone who has already been born in the universe, a mighty creature, Brahma is his name in the Vedas, he assembles these elements as Lego and creates different shapes. And modern science, materialistic science, which uses empirical method of cognition, what I see is truth, they cannot explain everything. They can only explain the gravity law, and the science, the modern science, works with the secondary creation. It doesn't even try to explain where the elements came from initially. It tries, but it's with great difficulty. The modern science explanation is at the beginning there was nothingness. There was some element which didn't even have any weight, and from the point of view of physics, we cannot even identify its weight or identify its position in ether. And all of a sudden, under the influence of some unknown to anyone forces, this particle, weightless particle, suddenly gained some weight. And then it started to expand. And the scientists say there was some explosion, and as a result of this explosion, this wonderful universe has been created. And somehow it all evolved and changed and came to amazing forms and shapes, animals, rivers, trees, ecosystem. But what we read in the Holy Scriptures, and I remember I studied the Bible in the childhood, everything starts with creation, even there. The God created light, water, etc. And who created this particle? Even if we agree that there was some kind of a particle, who created this particle then? Who created the primary elements? And that science or scientists cannot and don't even try to answer. It's impossible to answer this question because they are not mechanical. Some personality could have only created them, and some personality which emerged from a different world, non-material world. There must be some higher reason And in the scriptures it is said that this higher reason, you can call him God, is the impulse which creates these primary elements. And then secondary creation happens, and mixture of these elements and shaping of them. And in this fourth canto, the first topic described is the secondary creation. The scientists, who with the help of their eyes and feelings can understand something or study something, this is empirical method of knowledge. And maximum they have achieved is that elements eventually disappear in some black holes. The black hole means nothing is clear there. Why they were called black? Because they're black, you can't see anything and can't understand anything. And something emerges from them and is absorbed by them. But in the Vedas, the Lord is also black. Black means unknowable. And that's right, the Lord is unknowable. Something which lies beyond our abilities to understand. And what is the problem if we review this creation differently and not the same way as it's described in the scriptures? It is said in all scriptures that the Lord created the sun, earth. What's the problem? We can hear how the birds are chirping behind my window right now. They're waking up. There are a lot of birds which came here from India. They are so arrogant. When you eat something on the seaside, they come over and just grab your food. They're so arrogant, and they've even got rid of the crows and pigeons here. They corrupted the whole place. And when we see the sun and hear the birds chirping, we forget that this all is creation of the Lord and don't even glorify Him. We don't link in our mind with the Lord. And this empirical approach, when we don't understand or see the primary creation, we see only the secondary creation, we cut our ability to be religious and spiritual and maintain our contact with the Lord. And the scriptures, they build this contact, and they talk about this primary creation. In the canto today, fourth canto, we speak about the secondary creation. And then we speak about the special mercy of the Lord, Poshanam, in Sanskrit. And what is the speciality of this mercy or protection by the Lord to the devotees? Recently I had this discussion with one person. He said that the Lord supports everyone. Why is there a certain mercy to the devotees? It's not fair. All of us are children of the Lord. And before the principle of the special maintenance of the Lord of His devotees, there is a mere principle of maintenance of all living beings. This is also one of the 10 topics of the scriptures. And what does it mean, simply maintenance? It means that on every planet, heavenly planets or Earth or lower planets, every living being has a body. We were given this body. We didn't earn it. We didn't create it from plasticine. We were born and we had this body, and it grows. And that's one of the forms of how the Lord supports, maintains every living being. A man, a woman, a bird. Everybody has their body, and they can enjoy in their body, because the Lord gives it to everyone. Somebody can fly, swim, talk, think, walk. Some can create beautiful poetry, music, paint. All these talents, together with the body and subtle body, was given to us by the Lord, and He maintains us this way. And everybody has a house, a family, parents. And for us, it somehow happens. We didn't do anything, apply any conscious effort. We went and bought some parents somewhere in the shop. We were born. We simply born. We existed. Somebody gave those parents to us. And this is all maintenance by the Lord. And this relates to all living beings. And an interesting aspect of this support, maintenance, is the Lord created the boundaries for each being for instance, the animals live in forests, people live in the villages or cities, fish live underwater, some fly in the sky, somebody maybe lives on the moon. And in reality, the Lord created the boundaries and protects them so that the beings from one area would not interrupt with another area. And it's very important, it protects us. If that didn't happen, what happens in the Hollywood films, endless Star Wars could have happened, or some animals would have started to eating us, all these horror films, or rats or sharks. Sometimes we enter the habitat and we suffer from this, and they suffer from us. But sometimes they do enter our habitat, like the cockroaches. We don't invite them, but they come. But in majority, all of us live in our own habitat, and we shouldn't destroy those boundaries. And the Lord protects that. We need to live, each of us need to live in our own habitat. And if people or somebody ruins those boundaries, there are problems. For instance, now in Israel, the quarantine is almost over. There are no restrictions at all, but in other countries there are restrictions. And what is the reason for this pandemic of corona? Is because people broke the boundaries of habitat. And in reality, all problems of the human society, if we speak about health, most of the problems are related to the people breaking the boundaries. Like this specific pandemic of coronavirus has been caused by the bats or some other animals, somebody ate them. But all illnesses in human society, the most awful ones, the virus illnesses, came from the animal habitat, from the unsanctioned contact of human being with them, with animals. For instance, coronavirus is related to the bats. There was a swine flu. There were other viruses related to cows, or there was a bird flu. And even AIDS, the worst, the most terrible illness, came from the primates, from monkeys, apes, because people behaved incorrectly and entered their habitat and contacted them too closely. And in the 1930s, AIDS emerged in America, or initially it started in Africa and then moved to America. And AIDS started as a homosexualist illness when people entered some relationships and it was passed on. Initially, it was within limited conglomerates, but then it spread. You can read about it. It's a big problem in the world, which people stopped talking about, nearly forgotten about. But how it is different from other pandemics. It took the lives of 22 million people. These are not our illnesses. Everybody has their own karma. Animals have their own karma, and it's harder than human karma. They have their own viruses, which they ill with. And when a human being enters the animal habitat or eats them, or is too close to the animals with another habitat, then these viruses, illnesses, they move on to the human society. So we should not break those boundaries. And the boundaries is body, family, parents, house, planet. This is maintenance for all living beings. We all receive it from the Lord. But there is a special mercy. And this discussion I had with that person, why does the Lord is so special in mercy to the devotees? We can understand it. We can be in good relationship with all people, but if we have a wife, we have a special relationship to her. Or children, why? Why do we treat them specially? Because they give us love, and we want to give it back to them. We can't be the same, treat everybody the same way, even the most pious people. We can love everyone, but a special, we have special attitude, special relationships with the people who are close to us. You can understand that in many shops, here in Israel, for instance, we have these thermometers which are contactless, so that your temperature can be taken to test your temperature if you have no high fever. And if you have a fever, you are being sent home. Go away. Don't contaminate other people. But if somebody from your closest relatives gets ill and has a fever or a threat of a virus, then you will run home. You'll drop all your jobs. You'll come home. You'll look after this person. Days and nights, sleepless nights. You'll take them to hospital. You'll have a very special treatment to them. And the same with the Lord, because we serve Him with a special love and devotion. He is also reciprocates to us the same way. Then Manvantaras, these Manus, the ancestors of humankind, man, the word man emerged from this word. And when the Lord creates this creation and gives them the laws, how they should live in this world, the instructions, and these Manus are the conductors of these laws. Information from the Vedas, I don't know whether it will be useful. One Manu lives 308 million years. There are different lifespans of different living beings. These are demigods, they are sons of Brahma, of the Creator, who give the knowledge to people and give the laws. And if you don't follow those laws, you suffer. For instance, fire. Let's take fire. If you touch fire, you will get a burn, and you can't do anything about it. Whether you know about it or not, if you're a child or a grown-up, the law always is a law. You just need to know that you shouldn't touch the law, the fire. And the same way, the laws, the Manu laws, exist, and people should know about them. And if people don't follow them, they would not create bad karma. They would not create the future, or And all the problems in this life, the lack of money, conflicts with people, are the results that we have of us violating some of these Manu laws. In other words, it's not like people got born all of a sudden. God created this universe in people, and it's not like people are multiplying. There is a plan, there is a certain plan of how the Lord maintains and develops these people. And it's His desire to make people happy in this world. There are a lot of problems and illnesses and disasters in this world. It's hard to be happy. Nevertheless, the Lord is looking after us even on the material level. He gives us Manu laws, and factually these scriptures and the universe is constructed so that if we follow these scriptures, we become closer to the divine. This is constructed so finitely, psychologically, that our consciousness becomes purer and purer if we follow the laws. If people stop behaving the way they want, they get attracted to the laws because these Manu laws give them certain results. And there are higher laws. And after that, people start following them, the higher laws. And eventually they can return back to Godhead. In this canto, there are several stories. I will mention them. The first one is the conflict of Daksha and Shiva, between the divine and material. Daksha was the ancestor of the universe, who multiplied the living beings. He was quite attractive, but he was very materialistic. And Shiva, who in this case represents the spiritual, and there was a conflict between them. And the second story described here is the wonderful, sensational story of a small 5-year-old boy who made the whole universe suffocate and eventually received the darshan of the Lord Himself. And the next story is the story of a pious king, Prithu king, who was the example of the leader of the king. The leader is not just the president of the country, not just the one who looks after political and economical flourishing of the country. It's not about GDP. It's not the main concern of the society. The main concern of the leader of the society is to be the conductor of the Manu laws, of the instructions. And if you follow them or not, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's your personal responsibility. So the ruler, the king, should know these laws, and he should conduct them to the society, and therefore care after the society. And the king Prithu was a perfect leader. And further, the description of King Puranjana and Prachetas, very pious Prachetas. And now I will move on to a specific episode and focus on it. It's a story of this little boy. His name was Dhruva. Dhruva means decisive in Sanskrit. He was very amazingly decisive for his little age. And I will start with auspicious prayers, which we usually offer and which help us to understand the scriptures. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We sometimes sing songs, auspicious songs as well, before reading the scriptures, but I wouldn't do that because, as I said, it's early morning here and I don't want to wake up and disturb our neighbors. So I will read this verse and give a small comment. We have 20 minutes left before the questions. It's Srimad-Bhagavatam, canto 4, chapter 9, verse 2. Translation: The form of the Lord, which was brilliant like lightning, and in which Dhruva Maharaja, in his mature yogic process, was fully absorbed in meditation, all of a sudden disappeared. Thus Dhruva was perturbed, and his meditation broke. But as soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally present, just as he had been seeing the Lord in his heart. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Because of his material position in yogic meditation, Dhruva Maharaja was constantly observing the form of the personality of Godhead within his heart. But all of a sudden, when the Supreme Personality disappeared from his heart, he thought that he has lost him. Dhruva Maharaja was perturbed, but upon opening his eyes and breaking his meditation, he saw the same form of the Lord before him. In the Brahma Samhita 5.38, it is said, a saintly person who has developed love of Godhead by devotional service always sees the Lord's transcendental form of Shyamasundara. This Shyamasundara form of the Lord within the heart of a devotee is not imaginary. When a devotee becomes mature in his prosecution of devotional service, he sees face to face the same Shyamasundara he has thought of during the entire course of his devotional service. Since the Supreme Lord is absolute, the form within the heart of a devotee, the form in the temple and the original form in Vaikuntha, Vrindavana Dhama, are all the same. They are non-different from one another. So, an interesting phenomenon is described here. We often are told by people, so show me the Lord. Even the people who believe in God can doubt. Does God exist? We haven't seen him. And in this place of Canto 4, it is described that how a human being saw God. As I mentioned, I live in Israel and I like traveling, and there are a lot of holy places here. In Christian and Jewish tradition and the Abrahamic tradition, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, there is the same common root. They have the same holy places, and because of that, there are a lot of wars that happen here. Because all the holy places are in one, situated in one patch. And in Jerusalem, there are Christian and Jewish holy places. They're all situated very closely to each other. You can walk. It takes 5 minutes to walk through them. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Wall of Tears, where the tablets still remained with the laws from the Lord, and the Temple Mount, where the Aliyah Mosque is situated, from which Magomed ascended to the sky. He stepped on the cornerstone, you may have heard about it, from which the creation started. The ancient scriptures describe the Abrahamic scriptures. So he stepped on this cornerstone, jumped, and ascended into heaven. And this all holy places are situated relatively together, and the traditions argue between themselves who is the chief here, and sometimes there are conflicts, even military conflicts. But Lord, even in these scriptures, in the Bible, Torah, Quran, the Lord came to people in some form. He came to Moses, etc. And when a human being says, if somebody says, have you seen God? People say nobody saw the Lord, nobody saw people coming back from or reincarnating. And in Israel here, it's even prohibited to draw the image of the Lord because nobody saw him. How dare you draw him? It's prohibited by religion to create any human images of the Lord. A lot of interesting things happen here. There is Ashkelon town here, and there is a whole park, and a lot of sculptures, ancient sculptures are found in Mediterranean Sea. The goddess Nika, and they all have broken noses and ears because it is prohibited to view the human images of the Lord. Why? Because nobody saw the Lord. But Srila Prabhupada wrote all these scriptures. He said, why not? Somebody saw them. Don't say for everyone. So this little boy, he achieved with his decisiveness. And Dhruva means decisiveness. He achieved, he made the Lord come to him. Because this little boy, who was the son of a king, he was offended, he was insulted, and he left home. And his mother told him that nobody can help you in this problem apart from the Lord. And the boy asked, where can I find the Lord? And she said, I don't know where to find the Lord, but I know that the wise men usually live in the forests. That's where they get to know the Lord. So the boy went to the Lord, and he met one sage, Narada Muni, and he told the boy how to perform austerities and what he needs to do to become closer to the Lord. And that's what the boy did. He performed those austerities, fasted, he ate a little bit, and then he only ate the roots, and then he ate dry leaves. Then he stopped eating completely. He was standing on one leg, ate only air. He was a prana eater. He went through all the stages of vegetarianism, veganism, and prana eating, and he became so mighty, powerful, that his power, internal power, became one with the powers of the universe. And eventually he stopped even breathing. Have you heard about fasting on air? So he stopped breathing. He held his breath, and his breath was connected to the external forces, and the whole universe wasn't receiving oxygen, and it was suffocating. So the demigods came to Krishna and said, please do something. We need to solve this problem. So Krishna came to the boy, and in this verse it is described how God appeared in front of the boy. And how can we see God? Why can't we see him so easily? Because God is the highest of all, and in order to see him, we need to be on a high level. That's what the little boy did. He moved, ascended to a higher level, non-material level. And what we see, what we know, is our experience. And our experience tells us what is possible and what is impossible. If something is beyond our experience, if we haven't seen something, or heard, or touched, then we are skeptical about it. For instance, in the scriptures, it is said about the angels, some people with wings, and we say, no, we've seen people, we've seen the birds with wings, but together, no, we haven't seen. That's mythology, that's fairy tales. It's not impossible. And we know there was some ikar. He tried to build wings and attach them to himself, and eventually he flew and fell. But we can attach wings, we can create an airplane, but a human being with wings, it's irrational, it's impossible. Yes, the experience is a criteria of truth for a human being. A human being can believe or disbelieve, depending on their experience. And in material matters, material experience is important. For instance, you invite a builder to build a house and you tell them, I want to remove this wall, and he says, no, this is a bearing wall. If you do that, the whole house will collapse. Why? Because he has the experience. He knows that there are bearing walls which hold the whole house. And this is rational. It's correct. The experience is very important in the material matters, but in spiritual matters, spiritual experience is important. And as I said, modern science observes observable reality and studies the matter which we are able to comprehend. It is critical to religion and esoterical experiences, because it's beyond our feeling, subtle. It's subtle. It's beyond our material experience, and that's why the scientists say it's fairy tales. It's autosuggestion. There are no beings on other planets, and we sent the expedition to Mars. If we meet them, we'll say yes, they are. Yuri Gagarin flew to space. Remember? Probably you don't, because it's been a while ago. And when Gagarin flew and came back, the Soviet scientists said, Gagarin was in the sky on the orbit and haven't seen the God. And our consciousness is determined by this experience, by this reality. And this is all right, because we see and we know what we see. But while we can comprehend this reality, we can't understand subtle reality. This reality consists of 8 elements: earth, water, ether, air, fire, mind, intelligence, and false ego. And for instance, our eye can see. What does it consist of? It consists of some matter. Let's call it earth, because it's you can it consists of water. There is some mucous membrane in the eye. There is temperature. There is fire in the eye. Maybe some air. And with the help of an eye, we can see only what consists of earth, water, fire, has temperature, and maybe air. And everything which is subtle, the eye cannot see. We cannot see the mind, for instance. The mind is a subtle element. It's not earth. You can't touch it. You can't knock on it. You can't see the mind with the eyes. You can only see the mind of another person with your own mind. You can say, yeah, this person is clever, that one is not. Because we are based on the logic of our mind, and all these elements, all which this reality is created from, God is beyond this reality, so we can't see Him. The eye can only see something that is been lit by light. In the dark, we can't see anything. But nevertheless, there are different people. Some people believe in God, some people do believe in God, don't. So in the Vedas, it is described that some people who believe in God, they have some internal confidence that there is God. They have some spiritual experience of spiritual reality from their previous life experience. They have internal experience through service to the Lord, and they have established some kind of relationship with the God. And that's why the level of their faith is much higher. And another thing is, in this world, the ego of all living beings is important. Ego means personality. Without ego, there is no personality. Ego is I am, I want, I don't want, I'm important, I'm not important. And the purpose of life in this world for all beings is to establish ego, to establish our superiority. We have this setting in our mind that in order to establish our ego, we have to compare ourselves to some other ego. We always do it. And it has to be within the boundaries of our experience. For instance, in YouTube, you could see interesting stories with magicians. And these people show some amazing performances. And you don't believe your own eyes when you see something unusual happening. You think, oh, it's impossible. Why? Because this is not within your personal experience. For instance, this magician throws, he stands in front of behind the window of the shop and throws the cards, and 3 cards which you have thought about stick to the window of this shop on the other side of the window. So these are the same 3 cards that you have thought about. And we think it's magic. It's impossible. It's illogical. But some people know that there is some trick to it. Every trick has some mechanical background. And people are interested in watching how to understand the tricks. It's because it's fun. But when we meet a personality who is a real magician, who we can't be superior to, and that's why some people believe in God and some people don't believe in God. And that happens because of the ego, because we want to compare ourselves to others and to become superior to them. And when we meet the Lord, we understand that we will never be superior to Him. He is the most superior. There is no one equal to Him. And science studies nature with a certain purpose to manage this, to manipulate this nature, to manage the illnesses, temperatures, physics, laws. Not simply study it, but to manage it. But the problem is it's a false purpose to manage. We can learn it, but we can't manage. It's false understanding. We can't manage even our own bodies. Science cannot even explain the process of metabolism. They can describe the process, but they can't explain it. Even simple processes. And here Dhruva, this little boy, saw God. This is shocking. How could he see God? Of course, with the help of those actions that were promised to him given to him by the sages, he performed austerities and achieved a different reality. He achieved spiritual reality. He stopped his material reality and obtained a spiritual experience. And this experience can be obtained through service to the Lord. Therefore, in the purport, it is said that the eyes smeared with love for God can see God all the time. It's not just once, all the time. Thank you. I will stop here. If there are any questions or comments, please, I'm all ears. Thank you, Nara Hari Prabhu. Yes, we have a few questions. There is a question from Alexander. In Canto 4, we read the story of King Puranjana. Is he a fictional character? In his next life, Purana is born in the body of a woman and marries a real historical character. Further in the story, are all personalities real? Yes. This is the story told by Narada Muni, and he gives the example. Using the example of this woman, the king became a woman, he tries to explain what is incorrect way of activity. It is interesting that in Bhagavatam, some allegorical characters and real characters are displayed. In all these historical personalities, some kind of principles are manifested. For instance, Shiva and Daksha. Daksha is representing a human being who is willing to achieve good karma, and he believes that sacrifice will lead him to that. And even at the end, when at the sacrifice, he punishes Shiva and says, Shiva, you won't get the fruit of this sacrifice. But Shiva is not even interested in that. He just went home and read Bhagavatam. They are images. They are like, or Krishna and demons. Each demon is a manifestation of some certain principles. There are certain vices and anarthas. They are not. They represent the images of those vices. The demons. And if the principles and images correlate with some real personalities, it's possible, and the whole story of Puranas is based on that, on the story of universe. And this way we can understand that it's very important to understand that God gives us some lessons. It's not just some events happening, for instance, coronavirus. Why? Why Second World War, First World War? Why illnesses? Why do I have conflicts with this person? There is a principle behind it, and God teaches us, like Narada Muni is teaching King Puranjana, gives him lessons, and there are real personalities behind. This is the main thing we should understand. We can, of course, try to focus on contradictions, but it's better to focus on why. Why these images and lessons are manifesting through different characters, real and non-real. That's how I answer this question philosophically. Second question from Vladimir. How does Shiva relate to a spiritual world? Is his planet in spiritual or material world? Does it get destroyed at the end of Brahma's life? Do the descendants of Shiva and Parvati go to the spiritual planets after death? Thank you. Thank you for your question. Shiva is one of truths which is considered to be unknowable, Shiva Tattva. Nevertheless, there is an explanation to this, a theoretical explanation. There are two types of Shivas. There is Shiva in spiritual world and Shiva in material world, who emerges initially in the spiritual world. Shiva has his own planet, and the real followers of Shiva go there, and it's in the spiritual world. And there is another Shiva in this material world, and he lives in Kailash. And he is not the initial Shiva. He is his expansion, his incarnation of the initial Shiva. And there are a lot of Rudras who the incarnations of Shiva in this material world. And yes, in the Vedas it is described that there is Shiva Bhakti. Shiva is unknowable. Why? Initially, he is unclear. Because Shiva is Krishna, it's Lord, but who is manifested in material world. God doesn't want to manifest in material world. He doesn't want to mix with matter. He only casts a glance on material world. He doesn't touch it. And nevertheless, Shiva is the form of the Lord, which is between the souls and God, between the divine and ordinary souls, between the super soul and ordinary souls. And he has more qualities than jivas, but less qualities than the Lord. So his position is amazing and undescribable. He is compared to yogurt. If Lord is milk, then Shiva is yogurt. It's milk with some acids. So it's God with material energies mixed. But that's not possible for God. God never mixes with matter. But Shiva is the kind of a God, as kind of milk which mixes matter with material elements and becomes a yogurt. That's how it's described in Brahma Samhita. But in spiritual world, yes, there is primary Shiva, and Shivaites, Shiva Bhaktas go there. You can even ask Shiva to go to spiritual world, because Shiva is the best Vaishnava in material world. If in spiritual world, who is the best Vaishnava? It's Vaishnavi Shrimati Radharani. In the material world, the best Vaishnava is Shiva, and he is responsible for false ego. If you don't want to relate yourself to a body, ask Shiva. He is manifested in Panchatattva as Advaita Acharya. It's a mixed incarnation of Shiva and Vishnu. And each of the 5 Panchatattva characters, images of the Lord, has their own mission. Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda, and Advaita Acharya, he is the incarnation of Shiva and Vishnu. He removes false ego. If you pray, if you worship Advaita Acharya, you can achieve that. If you worship him as Vaishnava, not as the Lord. So this is the brief overview of Shiva Tattva. Thank you very much. A question from Svetlana. What is the nature and properties, initial properties of casual ocean? Was it created or did it always exist? Thank you very much. The casual ocean is between material and spiritual worlds. Karana is the cause, and Karandakashaya Vishnu is lying on it, who is the cause of creation, of all the universes, which are endless. What can we say if it's whether it's eternal or not? It's the same as if we try to answer the question if the material world is eternal. On the one hand, it's not eternal because it emerges and then collapses. And this happens all the time. The material world and casual ocean and Vishnu and all this incarnation of the Lord will never stop existing. Maybe it's also eternal category, but it's dashi. Sometimes it appears and then disappears. So everything, all creation collapses at some point and then emerges. When you ask this question, you're trying to understand this through your material experience. But our experience is the experience of the beginning and end. For instance, in the Vedas it is said he was, to begin with, it was one and then he became many. He expanded and became many. the souls appeared so that he can develop the relationship. But we know that the soul is eternal, so how did it... when was the Lord one to begin with? These concepts cannot be understood by the material consciousness, intelligence. It can only be understood by the spiritual intelligence. We can talk about it, we can never understand it, because there are contradictions which we see through the prism of our material mind, because our mind and intelligence has beginning and end. Everything here has the beginning and end. So this question is whether the souls have ever been born, when did it happen, was the casual ocean always exist or not, will it ever end, when did it start? All these questions, it's quite possible that the soul always has the tendency to fall to the material world, and this process will continue because this tendency exists. And it is said the spiritual world is endless, it's eternal. How can we understand this? It's a countless number of living beings there. At the same time, it is said that the material world is 1/4 of all living beings, all of the 3/4 live in the spiritual world. What does it mean? There are contradictions between the temporary and eternal, between the... It can be only understood if we are beyond the material world. So we can't tell describe this as with one word, whether the ocean, the current ocean, is eternal or does it collapse. We can't. I'm not going even to try to explain this. Thank you very much. Question from Irina. Can the Lord leave if we want to enjoy Him? How can I understand whether I enjoy Him or serve Him? Thank you. Thank you for the question. We can relate this question to ordinary relationship between people. When people communicate with each other, they can understand whether they perform their wishes or other people's wishes. God is another personality. He also has his own wishes, desires, and if we satisfy his desires, for instance, he wants to eat and we feed him, not when we want to eat, but we feed him when he wants to eat. And if the center of gravity or consciousness is moved towards the God, he is cold. Maybe the deity is cold. Maybe we need to feed him or dress him. That's why we have sadhana bhakti. We are being told that we have to feed God at a certain period of time. Otherwise, we would never guess when is the right time to do it. And then we get trained and get used to serving God. For instance, if we have a child, he's hungry, and we think, oh, he's hungry, we have to feed him. And the same with God. You either feed him according to a certain schedule and perform fulfill his duties, satisfy him. You love him so much, you think about him all the time, and you just spontaneously think about him and want to feed him and take care of him. Or whether we are focused on our own life and our own desires and think about feed him when we are hungry, and we can understand whether we want to enjoy something or God wants to enjoy. In reality, in this world, God doesn't want anything. All he wants, he has in spiritual world. He has his pastimes, associates, but on the material plane, there is a plan. He has a plan for us, for as many living beings as possible, to link with God. That's his only desire here. If we have an option to go and talk to them about God, and we think, oh, I don't want to go anywhere, I want to sit here, I want to sleep, I want to watch TV, then we are following our own desires. God has other desires. It's quite easy to understand if we take the example of our closest relatives. Thank you. Question from Galina Tanasova. Who is Durga? Goddess Kali in spiritual world on Galoka? Or is she only like Lakshmi? She lives on Vaikuntha eternally. Durga means prison. In spiritual world, there is no prison. There is prison, in material world. And yes, this is the expansion of Lakshmi. Vishnu has always two forms of Lakshmi. Lakshmi one, and Lakshmi who is Saraswati, who gave knowledge to Brahma through Gayatri. It's a very esoterical topic. Yes, God has two Lakshmis. And of course, in spiritual world, there are thousands and thousands of such Lakshmis. And this whole female line of incarnations starts with Srimati Radharani. There are two lines of expansions. One starts from Krishna, and then Balarama emerges, and from Balarama everything else appears. From Balarama, the Vaikuntha planets appear. That's Balarama, including all Narayanas. They are all expansions of Balarama. From Balarama, the trees on Vaikuntha planets, lakes, rivers, all living beings appear. Vishnu, from his expansions, not from four expansions of Balarama appears. Karnakashaya Vishnu, Mahavishnu, and then material world emerges, and then all the living beings. So Krishna, and then Balarama, and then everything else. But from Balarama, from Krishna also Srimati Radharani emerges. Srimati Radharani and Krishna are one whole, and she is his female energy of enjoyment. And this Radharani, she is the prime source of all gopis, of 8 Sakhis. And they are the source of all of other gopis, manjaris, etc., etc. And on Vaikuntha planets, their expansions are Lakshmi. In material world, Lakshmi manifests as Durga, that's her expansion. And eventually it's the manifestation of the initial Radharani. And Durga appears as Durga only in material world, and in spiritual world she is Lakshmi. And she has a totally different mindset, and she does different things. She has 3 forms in material world, Durga. Durga is Kali. Durga is a supporter. Kali is the one who destroys. And there is even a female psychology for women. Each woman has Durga, Kali, sometimes within herself. Sometimes she supports and sometimes she destroys. So it's the same personality, but in spiritual world she's a modest Lakshmi, and she serves the holy lotus feet of the Lord. Thank you. Question from Evgenia. How can I understand the wishes of Krishna towards me, plans for Krishna towards me? If my wishes do not come true, why is it said that Krishna fulfills all wishes? That's a very interesting question. This verse is translated, Eka means one. It's not just the firm which manufactures sandals. Eka in Sanskrit means one. Of all eternal, I'm the only eternal. Kaman means wishes, desires. I'm the only one who fulfills all your desires. There is no second in this world who can fulfill your desires. Even if somebody fulfills your desires, for instance, you ask, can you bring me water? Your desire seems to be fulfilled, but it's the Lord who fulfills your desire through another person. And suddenly we sometimes not all our wishes come true. So how do we understand this phrase? I always fulfill the wishes of all living beings from the beginning of creation. So how does this happen? I was promised but didn't get. First of all, we should take into account karma. I can say straight away that God fulfills all desires. For the best or for the worst, I don't know. Sometimes our desires lead us to bad consequences. If we are in ignorance, we can wish for something really bad. So not always our desires are for our benefit. Sometimes they have we have been influenced by some forces or some people. And God doesn't rush to fulfill those desires. They sort of line up. In the life of devotee, an interesting phenomenon happens. God fulfills the desire so that when this desire gets fulfilled, which you shouldn't worry about, it will be fulfilled. Every desire will be fulfilled. But the Lord fulfills them in such a way that helps us to get closer to God. God gives us what we want, but He gives us what we need to get in the form which will be useful for us. And you can notice that your desires get fulfilled, but in a different way. If you want your desire to be fulfilled exactly as you wish, then you should worship demigods. Demigods fulfill material desires. God doesn't always fulfill those material desires in the same way as we wish. He sometimes doesn't want to give you a wine glass with poison because he cares about you. It's like with children. Children want something, but the parents don't necessarily give them that. For instance, if it's dangerous for a child, he can say, I want a kilo of ice cream. And parents understand if a child eats a kilo of ice cream, then he'll spend a month at a hospital. The child is in childish ignorance. And parents take care of the child. They give them a little bit of ice cream and say, okay, I'll give you ice cream every day, a little bit. And the same way God behaves with us. But we can rely on God, and He will, by all means, will fulfill all your desires. We shouldn't worry about it. We shouldn't get strained about them. We should better think how to fulfill His desires, because our desires is not a problem. It's all possible, solvable. If we can fulfill at least one desire of the Lord, there was a question about what the Lord wants from me. He will let you know what He wants from you. First of all, you can read or hear in the lecture, and then some flashes will happen in your mind. And especially if you don't have any instructions from the wise men to ask this question, the Lord gave you certain talents and nature. And we think this is our karma, this is what we've got from the Lord by karma. But God has a certain mission in mind for every human being, and He gives us instruments so that we can serve Him in a certain form, like Arjuna. He was an archer, and Krishna needed an archer, and he used him. Similarly, if you are a painter or musician, or if you write poetry, or you can do with your hands, if you took some education or some life lessons, nothing is spontaneous. This is how the Lord wants to tell you what He wants from you. He shapes a personality from you with your personal mission. And you can use all these qualities and talents in service to the Lord. And you will know for sure what the Lord wants from you. Thank you. Question from Anna. How to stop sense gratification if this is our nature? We can't live like robots without enjoyment. Or should we only feel enjoyment during service? Or should we serve without any feelings, do the service for the sake of service? An interesting question. I will give an example of chanting of mantra on the beads, Hare Krishna mantra. We can chant mechanically. And when we chant mechanically means we don't remember about God. We don't focus on the sound. We think about own stuff, make plans. During the mantra, our consciousness is clear, and it's very obvious to us what we should do, what we should plan, or what we should answer, or fight with someone, or win someone in the argument. All that swirls in our mind when we chant. And that's called mechanical chanting, when we think about ourselves, not God. And of course, we don't have any taste to service, to the holy names. Why? Because our feelings, our desires and sense gratification is the continuation of the senses of the Lord. It's like fingers are continuation of your hand. And if you eat something and your whole body is happy, it received energy. But if you were fasting for a long time, you feel weak, your legs don't hold you. It's like a newborn camel. You just fall because you didn't have any food. Then you eat. You gave food to the stomach, but the whole body feels energy. You can run. Your legs are strong. Similarly, we are extension of the feelings of the Lord, and when the Lord is not happy with us, we are not happy ourselves. We don't feel the satisfaction. If we want to feel satisfaction through God on the spiritual level, if we want to experience the taste to service, then we need to make it so that the Lord will be happy, so that we... and when the Lord is happy, we automatically become happy, and we obtain taste to chanting mantra. Otherwise, we're just chewing it and thinking about our own things, and can't wait to stop chanting, finish it, and run, do something. Or we are bored, we have no taste, it's all dry, our service is tasteless, because God is not satisfied. We automatically get satisfaction when He receives satisfaction from our service. It's not we interact not with the beads, not with the bead bag. We interact with the personality of Godhead, which is behind these beads. We interact with the holy names. And God has name Bhavagrahi. Bhava means the mood. God is fed by our thoughts, by our mood. It's not that we go to the temple and chant japa. That is mechanical service. We will never feel the taste if we mutter the chanting the holy names, we will be always under stress. It will be a burden for us. But if we turn our consciousness to God during mantra, during cooking for Him, that's what God is. Not your apples or rice, but what we give Him, what we put into the process. We can offer water or a leaf, but God can enjoy it, and you will be happy. Because you have offered it. You don't offer just an object. You offer your love, your taste, your mood. And then we will feel happiness from service. That's when it will make sense. And then we won't want this material sense gratification. It's a difficult topic about the mechanical, chemical enjoyment through our body. But this is all temporary and very limited. That's why we are not satisfied, no matter how much we enjoy in this world. Because we are designed for a different kind, different type of enjoyment. And this happiness is only possible in relationship with God, when our bhava, our mood, our love we give to God through performing actions. Thank you very much. Our time is up, but there are many, many more questions. I'll try to formulate it very briefly. From Marina, it's about piety. When the soul falls from divine planets, holy planets, this means that piety ran out. Then what kind of piety is meant when it is said that to begin practicing Krishna consciousness, first we need to earn piety? We do not have enough piety to start reading scriptures, chant Mahamantra. Is this same term with different meanings? Please explain. This is very easy. The devotees often ask this question about the spiritual and material piety. What is material piety? We talk about Sukriti, which is spiritual piety. Sukriti is a Sanskrit word. When you do something on material level, you obtain material piety. If you do something on spiritual level, you receive spiritual piety. These are two different spheres. For instance, when you donated, gave money to some beggar, it's material piety, because money is material piety. If you gave this beggar food which has been offered to the Lord, this is both material piety because you fed him, and spiritual piety because you gave him spiritual food, or maybe you gave him a book and talked to him about God. And material piety is linked to the heavenly planets. And those who have a big bank of pious deeds on this planet. Material means aimed at the body and mind. So you can do something physically, or cure someone, or build hospitals, or give somebody money. On the plane of mind, you can support someone, give some psychological advice. On material level, it will be you will get the same reactions on the material level. You will be rewarded with money, glory, food. And when you have a lot of this piety on earth, and you cannot feel all this piety, all this enjoyment here. You are not able to enjoy this world anymore. If you are Rockefeller, for instance, you've done everything you wanted to do. Then there are heavenly planets, where there is a lot of different tastes and money and enjoyment. And when you spend this piety, everything you've invested into your bank, and you come to the bank machine and use your card, and the bank machine says, sorry, your money is run out. And that means you come back to earth and you've used all your piety, no more money left. But as for spiritual piety, when you do something for the Lord, when you perform some service, this is spiritual sukriti. Even if you thought about God or about his devotees well. For instance, if there is a Harinam on the street and the devotees sing the holy names, and you simply thought, nice song, well done, good boys and girls, pretty, clean, tidy, and you thought something nice about Krishna or something which is related to Krishna, you think well about it, and you obtain sukriti, this spiritual piety. It's unconscious. You haven't planned to think well about it. It just happens. And that's agyata sukriti. It's unconscious. And when you have enough unconscious positive sukriti, you become a devotee of the Lord. And you get even more experience. When you do something for Krishna, he instantly pays attention to you and charges you with this spiritual experience and puts the spiritual taste into your heart. And you read books and you like it. You sing the holy names and you suddenly like it. At the same level as much spiritual piety you have. While the material piety can run out, spiritual piety only grows. It never stops, ends. It has no boundaries. It always expands and elevates. And you can only accumulate spiritual piety. Everything related to God, it will always be with you. Thank you, Nara Hari Prabhu. Your lecture had a lot of warm feedback from the listeners. There are many thanks. Thank you very much for this very interesting lecture. Good luck. Goodbye. Thank you for your time.